What's going on, everyone? This is skycedi and welcome back to another video. And would you guys believe that it has been 1 whole year since I moved to Korea? That is so crazy. I mean, people say this all the time, but time just flew by this past year. I mean, I remember just like it was yesterday, packing up all my stuff and getting on that flight to come here, and it's already been a year. So I want to give you guys an update on how it's been this past year and just kind of reflect with you guys a little bit. And for those of you guys that have been rocking with me even before I came to Korea, thank you so much for just supporting me on the journey. And it's really cool that I get to share this whole journey with you guys from the very beginning up until now. And there's still so much more to show you guys. So definitely stick with me on the journey because I think it's going to take us to some awesome places. In addition to giving you guys an update on this past year, I also want to talk about this concept of the Korean Honeymoon Phase. So stick around for that. So 1 year ago, I hopped on a Korean air flight with 4 pieces of luggage, which represented my whole livelihood. And I hopped on the plane, came over here and started my new life. Kind of knew what to expect, but for the most part, I didn't know what was to come, what was gonna happen, how I was gonna feel. I kind of anticipated that everything would be cool and everything would be fun, but I really had no idea what things would look like as my life unfolded over here. For those of you guys that have checked out my other videos over this past year, you guys know some of the things that I got into and some of the connections I started to make here. And so it's been a wild ride. It's been a very fun ride, and I don't regret a single second of it. I want to talk about how I felt and some of the expectations that I had coming in, and then just kind of let you guys know where I am and where I stand today. Oh, by the way, if you notice, this background is a little different. The environment is a little different because this is my new apartment in Seoul. I've been living in Daejeon for the past year, and so I needed to switch things up, and so I'm still getting things set up, but for the most part, this is it. I'm gonna give you guys an apartment tour pretty soon, so be on the lookout for that. One of my expectations a year ago when I first moved here was to really dive deeper into my cultural heritage. I wanted to explore my Korean cultural roots on a deeper level, and what better way to do that than to actually move to Korea. So it's interesting because my thought process was, if I can move to Korea and get adjusted as quickly as possible, then I can really dive deep into exploring my cultural heritage and really just improving on the language and learning how Korean culture is here versus in the United States, which is what I was used to. And so that's what I expected to do coming in. But what ended up really happening was, as soon as I got off the plane, I spent a few days in Seoul chilling with some of the newer Epic teachers that came in during the same intake. And then right after that, we went into a 9 or 10 day orientation with Epic, and then we were thrown into our schools. And on top of that, me having this YouTube channel, I was already invested in that. And so I invested my time outside of work building up this channel and making videos and making content for you guys. And so I literally hit the ground running as soon as I came to Korea, and I really just didn't have a lot of time to process and to take things in as much as I would have liked to. So after the first few months, I got into my routine. I realized that it was a little bit more difficult for me to quote unquote connect with my cultural heritage if I'm really just busy with work and doing videos. And so my expectation of being able to do that initially coming in was a little different from the reality of what happened. And so I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. What I'm saying is I just didn't realize that when I got here, I would get so busy that it would be a challenge for me to connect with my culture in the way that I wanted to. So I began to discover that if I wanted to really connect with the Korean culture in a deeper way, that I needed to be more intentional in doing that. Connecting with either your culture or any other culture takes you being proactive. I knew that I needed to make some changes in how I was living and what I was doing if I really wanted to connect in a deeper way. That may sound negative, it's really not. It's just a learning experience, again. So I was just so busy last year, and don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed my experiences, but I think this year, as I'm going into my second year, I want to take a little bit more time to appreciate the things that are around me and the culture that's around me. Outside of that, I've had a blast in this past year, just adjusting to a new culture, a new way of living. And For me, I love to be fluid. I love to just adjust to wherever my environment is and assimilate in the best way that I can. So I felt like I did that last year as much as I could, and it's been great. I've been able to connect with some cool people, establish some relationships, and even pursue my goals and ambitions on a greater level than I had originally imagined for the first year. But yeah, it's been an absolute blast. I've enjoyed this past year and I've learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to continuing the learning process on this journey as I'm here in Korea. Like I've mentioned before, I do plan on being here for a long time, and so this is going to be just a constant evolution of my mind and how I see things and my perspectives here. And of course, you guys will get to see that evolution as it happens, and so it's really cool. Yeah, so let's just see what this year holds for skycedi, because I'm in a new location. I've been here for a year. I've been able to adjust, and I plan on being a little bit more proactive this year with connecting with the culture. And of course, I'm gonna share that with you guys as it unfolds. All right, before I end the video, I wanna talk about this concept called the Korean Honeymoon Phase. Now, if you don't know what the Korean Honeymoon Phase is, that's okay, I got you. So this is what the Korean Honeymoon Phase is. You first come to Korea and everything is just so new and so dynamic, and everything just seems so wonderful. You're having so much fun and you don't really know what to expect, but everything that comes at you is pretty cool. You might even have some bad experiences, but your good experiences far outweigh those bad experiences. So you have this wonderful, idealistic perspective on Korea and Korean culture and the people here. But then, after a few months, that begins to fade a little bit. So those initial feelings and that initial excitement that you used to have starts to fade away a little bit, and you begin to see things for the way they really are. You begin to see that if you're working here or if you're a student here, that things aren't as idealistic as maybe you had once thought. So what ends up happening is certain things begin to annoy you a little bit easier and a little bit quicker, and you begin to see some of the quirks in the people here, and you begin to see a lot of the flaws in the culture. And that usually happens after the first few weeks or first few months, and everyone's different. Everyone has different levels of this Korean honeymoon phase, but it does exist. But for the most part, I think everyone goes through it to a certain extent. I would venture to say that this phase is not even a bad thing. As a matter of fact, I think it's a great thing. I mean, when a couple gets married and they go on their honeymoon, they're in a honeymoon phase. Everything is brand new. They're just getting married, they're starting their lives together, and they're usually going off to a trip together, and they're celebrating their honeymoon, they're celebrating their initial time together. But once they get back home and they get back into the routine of life, they begin to see the reality of living with one another. They begin to see that maybe their spouse, who they kind of felt like was the perfect person, is leaving their clothes all over the floor and just leaving dirty dishes in the sink. They're starting to see these little annoyances about their spouse. I think that happens to us in so many different areas of our lives, right? Anything that we start that's new and fresh, usually it's exciting, but that excitement tends to wear off once we realize the reality of whatever we're doing or whatever we're trying out. I think the same thing holds true when you move to another country, especially if you're very excited about moving to that country. We all have different motivations and different reasons for moving to Korea, but you know, I think for most of us, once we live here for a while, we kind of realize we still have to work, we still have to study, whatever the case is, and we have to get into a routine. And I think that routine many times kind of gets us to realize, oh man, maybe this isn't the perfect country or the perfect culture that I once thought it was. Okay, so maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the point is there is a Korean honeymoon phase that most people go through when they first move here. And I just want to offer a couple of things that will maybe help you transition from that honeymoon phase to reality, and that way you don't crash and burn really hard. Here's what I think would help with that. Two things. The first thing is begin to really take actionable steps to assimilate into the culture. What I mean by that is you're being proactive in learning the language of the culture and also learning the history of the culture a little bit, because if you learn the history of the culture, then a lot of the things that you see and experience every day here in Korea will begin to make sense. Also, another thing is getting involved in some of the traditions and customs that Korea has. Now, the first thing had to do with the culture on a macro level, but the second thing that I believe would help with the transition from the honeymoon phase into reality is to get to know the people of the culture. And this is more on a micro scale. This is on a one-on-one individual basis. If you get to know the people here on an individual basis, in other words, you meet a Korean local and you get to know them and how they think and how they feel and how they do life, I think it's going to help you to see the beauty of the culture and also see the beauty of the individual. Because it's easy for us to get caught up in our own bubble and really neglect to see that the people who are part of the culture are also human beings with feelings and perspectives too. And you'll come to find out that a lot of people who live here and who are natives here, they see life in a very similar way that you do. And so once you begin to establish those deeper connections with the locals, I think that's going to help you with the transition. And also, not to mention, you'll be able to develop some really cool friendships and relationships that way. Okay, so that's all I had to share with you guys. I wanted to give you guys that update and also talk about that Korean honeymoon phase a little bit. So hopefully something I said helped you or inspired you in some way. Guys, again, thank you so much for watching this video. Also, for those of you guys that have been with me on this journey from the very beginning, or you recently just found this channel and started watching my videos, thank you guys. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and also click that notification bell. I'm very excited about the content that I have planned coming out for you guys, and I'm going to be featuring more people and more stories on this channel, so be on the lookout for that. If this video was valuable for you, make sure you share this video with someone that you know or someone in your circle, because maybe it'll help them too. Alright guys, we'll see you in the next video, and remember to always seize the day. Peace.